Today, city voters are going to the polls to vote for Proposition 2, which is the MLS Stadium. A man who has been on this show about 85,000 times talking about stadium financing. He was a former professor at Webster Groves. He's now at Washington University. Dr. Patrick Rishe, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Thanks for having me on this morning.
You have been outspoken, oftentimes stepping on toes of billionaires and millionaires who want public input and public finances for stadiums. You have been stalwart in your opposition, oftentimes debunking that these stadiums are good financial deals. And then I read in Forbes magazine, you think this MLS stadium is a good idea for St. Louis?
Yeah, I really do. And there's a big difference between what's going on with this particular vote today and some of those past studies that I looked at. It's funny, going down memory lane here as you're setting it up, wrote a op-ed piece probably 10, 15 years ago while the Cardinals were trying to get 80-90% public funding for Busch Stadium. I thought that was a little too strong. You know, if you look at the data, going back to 1990, of all the public-private facility partnerships in professional sports, and there are over 50 of those deals at least, you're looking at a median public share of somewhere between 65 and 70% of the total cost. And in this particular case, two key numbers to think about are, number one, with respect to just the stadium, just the construction cost of the stadium, the public's investment would be 39%. And actually, the public's investment, we need to get into that too. Secondly, when you factor in the fact that these investors of the team, would-be owners, are also having to spend $150 million on the expansion fee, then that puts the total cost of the project such that the public is only contributing about 20%. The last thing I would add is I keep saying the public's contribution. Well, the way that this is breaking down to the way these propositions lay out, guys, is such that if you're not going to the stadium itself, and if you're not a business doing out-of-town purchases, then you're not paying this tax. If you're a resident of the city and you're not engaged in the facility, or if you're not paying those, making those out-of-town purchases as a business, then you're not paying the tax.
Patrick Rishe, you're a professor at Wash U. Was this a paid study by one of the participants that are benefiting from this stadium deal?
There was a study that was done for this project that was, I believe, the name of the company was Missouri Wonk. And that's the study that's posted on the website for the SCSTL. So I had a chance to review that. I reviewed some numbers separately back in the fall. So I've had a chance to look at this a couple of different ways from a couple of different angles. The report that's published on the website for SCSTL is one that really focuses, probably more appropriately so, just on the city impact. And I believe that study looks at about a $17 million surplus of lifetime tax benefits over the costs that are being discussed.
Yeah, but have you personally been compromised? Are you being financed in any way by these people?
No, not at all. Again, I had an opportunity to look very carefully at the numbers back in the fall, but that was just simply something that I wanted to look at, kind of do an analysis of what are the potential revenues coming in long-term of a facility versus the cost. And again, you know, it's one of those deals where if you look at the history of these deals, which I have over years of teaching classes and providing commentary like I'm doing now, it's just hard to imagine anything that I've seen in the past, as I wrote in my article, where it's as fiscally sound as what we have, given the circumstances. And those circumstances are that we are in a city and a region where, unfortunately, maybe there isn't more cooperation between the city, the county, and the state as we'd like to see. But given the circumstances, I think that this is as fiscally responsible a deal as I've seen.
So somebody out there is going to the polls right now who hates soccer, doesn't want any city tax dollars going to this, is going to vote no. You would say, well, that's fine, but you're sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face. Would you go that far in saying something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would quite phrase it that way, but if I could, I just came back from the National Association of Sports Commissions annual conference out in Sacramento. And this conference, you have sports commissions and CVBs across America that are touting their wares, touting their new, convention centers, facilities, whether they're professional, collegiate, or youth, baseball fields or soccer fields. And it's really a conference about progress. So then to leave that conference, and especially in Sacramento where they have this beautiful new Golden One Center where the Sacramento Kings play, that was, I think, a 50-50 split between the public and the private sector. The citizens there are beaming with pride over this new facility. The mayor, Kevin Johnson, former NBA All-Star, basically rescued the franchise. But now you've got a facility that people are actually going to come into town and go to events. I think I've lived here now for 18 years. It's not been a city of progress as it relates to so many things. And this is an opportunity to help bring people into the community, whether they're coming from the county downtown or whether they're coming from outside of the state to come to St. Louis for not just Major League Soccer, but other events that could be held there, whether it's women's soccer, whether it's U.S. men's and women's national teams, whether it's youth regional soccer tournaments that are maybe playing futsal in futsal fields that are built near the stadium. I just think there's a lot of opportunities for growth and for progress that are just not, it's going to be harder if this doesn't happen. And again, I think the other thing that needs to be considered is the timing. Major League Soccer, you've got 12 cities vying for 2 franchises right now. Major League Soccer, guys, unlike the NFL, actually wants to be in St. Louis. They like the ownership group. They know about the city's history. This is our opportunity, and if we don't this year, because they're going to make that decision in the fall, if we don't do it this year, I'm really concerned that we're going to miss out altogether.
Well, also, too, many people say that, this sort of is the perfect storm, and even if somebody comes down 5 years from now and puts up the money to get to this point, the city voters would have to vote on something like this again, so it would still have to be approved by the voters. So if we pass on this opportunity, as you say, it might not come around again.
It really couldn't. And again, Taylor Twellman was here not too long ago speaking the same thing during the rally that they had when Commissioner Garber was here. And again, I can't stress that enough. Major League Soccer wants to come here. Don Garber, the commissioner of the league, he wants to be here for all the reasons that people have talked about and I wrote about in my Forbes piece.
Patrick, Patrick, I want to get to another question here before I run out of time.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is this, and there's been quite a bit of speculation, talk on talk radio and everywhere else that a stadium and the fans don't generate revenue from bars and restaurants and offshoots around the stadium. Some say yes, some say no. In this particular situation, will this be a benefit long-term, more positive than negative with the surrounding bars, areas, and things like that?
Again, I say absolutely yes. I understand the argument that's made that you can have what's called some leakage, where some of the money that's spent downtown at the facility, say by visitors, may leak back out of the community if some of those restaurant owners and hoteliers and staff members and employees live outside of St. Louis City. So there is a possibility of leakage. But remember, every time someone spends money in downtown St. Louis, because whether they're coming from Webster Groves, Chesterfield, Kansas, Chicago, Illinois, you name it, they have to pay some sales tax dollars that are then going to be able to flow through the entire region, and part of that region is the city of St. Louis.
Patrick Rishe, we'll wait and see what happens. Thanks for your time, and you're always welcome here, sir.
Thank you, guys.
You got it. Patrick Rishe is a Washington University professor for the last 2 years. If you remember the name, he was at Webster Groves for a long time and has been very critical. Took a lot of slings and arrows from the powers that be during the whole Busch Stadium argument. But in this instance, saying that this St. Louis City MLS group stadium deal is unprecedented and would reap all sorts of community benefits. Not my words, not the MLS people's, but an independent professor at WashU who studies these things. Kind of interesting. 727 here.